Hi everyone, my name's Sophia,
And my name is Hank.
and welcome to You Know Me So Well. Today we are talking about long distance relationships. So, Hank and I are technically a long distance couple. We have been a long distance couple for what, like 7 months now?
Yeah, coming up on it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
no. In March?
yeah. We started in August, September, October, November, December, January, February.
Okay. Anyways, so we're so we're coming up on 7 months of long distance. So I feel like Hank and I have a very fortunate situation regarding long distance, especially for our age, because most people our age are in college and both parties are in college. And so there's like very limited flexibility in visiting each other. It's either a weekend visit or over like a break, and breaks only happen every so often. But in our case, Hank is not in college currently, so he has a lot more flexibility to kind of move around. His like what he does for work is also completely remote. So, yeah, he can really be anywhere in the world. So, actually, currently, Hank has been here now for a month, over a month now, and he's been staying with me, and he's going to be staying with me for probably a little bit more. But also, like, in the time that I have been here, especially living in my apartment, Hank has visited me now. This is the third time, and it's always been for a bit more, for a longer period of time than I would be able to do. So, like, I'd only be able to visit for a weekend, or like, I was at his for Thanksgiving, and that was about a week. But his first visit, he was here for like almost 3 weeks, and the second visit was like a week and a half. So we're pretty fortunate. But regardless, long distance is difficult, no matter what situation you are, because when you're in a relationship, you want to be with that person a lot, and it's nice to have sort of that physical comfort to get you through life. And when you're long distance, you have that large distance between you. And I feel like that also just creates a lot of like conflict and unnecessary issues that come into the relationship that, you probably wouldn't have had if you were in the same place and you were able to see each other like every day or every couple of days. Yeah, so I guess the best way to kind of go about like we've been kind of out of a long distance relationship for a while. So it's not very fresh in our head, but I will say
Wait,
all I
wait,
can,
wait.
yeah.
I want to explain that part. So it's like you came to visit me for Thanksgiving, stayed for like a week, and then it was only like a week and a half before I then went to visit you for a couple weeks. And then you were on vacation over Christmas for like a whole month. So that was something that like didn't really even feel like long distance because that was something that you would have been doing no matter what. And as a time we would have been apart from each other no matter what. And then basically as soon as you got back,
Yeah,
I
I
came to visit.
I got back. I was at home for a couple of days and I came back to my apartment, and literally that night, like I think I came back to my apartment at 7 p.m. and at like 12, Hank was at my door. So yeah, so we've kind of been out of it for a while, but if you were to ask me like to just summarize the long distance period, like the true long distance period we had in one word, I would say it was volatile. It was a messy situation, and it took a really long time to sort of, I mean, you don't get really used to it, but let's say you get used to it. So yeah, I think there were a couple of things going into it. So to start off with, when we started long distance, we had actually been living together. We had lived together for 2 months while we were in New York, and then I left. And I moved back to Florida. And Hank was in Utah. Or, well, Hank was in New York and then he went back to Utah. And that's like my permanent residence right now is Florida. His permanent residence right now is Utah. So that's the distance. And over our relationship, we'd spent a lot of time together. Many of our waking hours were spent like together, either in LA, in New York, whatever, doing stuff, living together, the whole thing. So this was the first time that we'd done like short, long distance periods beforehand. And like we thought that might have had prepared us for what was to come, but it really is a different situation when you're doing it for 3, 4 something weeks and you know that you're going to see each other at the end of that period and then you're going to be back together in the same place versus when you are actually doing a long distance relationship, and when you do see each other it's only for a temporary period of time. So yeah, it was like the first time where we were really forced to like be apart from each other and to not be able to see each other like, well, we were seeing each other every day. So to see each other every day. And that made it extremely difficult. I would say that the first like 2 to 3 months, even with like the visits that we had, was it was just like we were walking this like fine line between being together and like breaking up. Like I'm not kidding. It was every day was like a new adventure. And every day I was like, honestly, today might be the day where we just end it all because this has been so tough. It really tests like your communication skills. It just tests it all. It's just this one big test and it's so stressful and it sucks when you like get home from a long day and all you want to do is like see your person and you have to open up your computer screen to like talk to them. And then, like you can only talk to them for a certain period of time or like you're on a different time distance or not time distance, time zone and it's like they have to go to dinner or like whatever it is. It's just really rough. And I specifically, like, I've never felt like I was cut out for long distance. That whole entire time I was like, this was not made for me. Like, or I was not made for this. Like, I I feel like I could have been better without this. But for some reason, we somehow made it through. I'm still not really sure how, honestly. But I think the one thing that really helped was eventually I just accepted the fact that this situation was going to be really rough and that I was going to have my bad days. You were going to have your bad days. We were both going to have like a bad day relationship wise. And it wasn't necessarily because our relationship is failing or anything. It's simply because of that like distance that was putting us apart. And I'm not saying that I was like easy. Like, I feel so bad for Hank. I feel like I was just like a nutcase. Like,
We're in a nutcase.
okay. Well, I feel like, I don't know, like I just could not handle long distance very well. But when I finally came to that mindset, it made things just a little bit easier. And it helped me get through those days where it felt like everything was going wrong. And it also made me realize, like, because like I remember like we would have these long distance periods and it would be like pretty volatile. I think the way we did it, it was like we would have like a couple of good days and then like a number of bad days, and they would sort of like be grouped together, and then again like good days and then again bad days. And I was just like, I don't know, like something happened to our relationship. It was really great and now it's not great. And I think that was also sort of the like end of the honeymoon phase for us. We had a pretty long honeymoon phase, but this like really brought us to reality of like, oh, now you have to just like figure it out on your own. And like you have that person and you can talk to them, but like they're not there to live life with you. So you're living life by yourself, and you can tell them and hope that maybe they'll be able to relive parts of it with you. But like, your life is your life, their life is their life. And then like whatever small things you can do together, that's, I guess, like your life. So yeah, I felt like our relationship had just like gone down the drain. But then when we would see each other in person, everything would be back to normal again. And I will say the fun thing about being in a long distance relationship is sort of that giddiness of like, oh my God, I'm gonna get to see that person soon. Like if you're like flying to them, like you get ready and you pack your bag and you're like, tomorrow I get to see him. And then, like you get on the flight and you get all like the butterflies. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And it almost feels like it's the first time again,
Right.
like the first time I'm seeing him. And it's like, I'm so nervous up until the moment that like he'll pull his car up to the curb and I'm like, oh no, what did I
Yeah.
get myself into? And then like after I feel like it usually takes like a day for me to warm up to it. I feel like I'm such an awkward person, but I feel like it takes a day for me to warm up to like being around him again, and then it's all great. And I'm like, oh, like there's nothing wrong with our relationship. It's actually just the distance that's like putting us apart. So, yeah, and I mean, if you're like on the flip side where you're like waiting to receive the person, but yeah, there is like some excitement to being in a long distance relationship. Then it sucks when the trip comes to an end and you have to like, I've cried at the airport so many times or on the plane. It's horrible. It's really horrible. I hate it. I think I'm getting better, but it's not a great feeling. A long distance relationship is rough. And like, I think that if you're in a long distance relationship, you just need to cut yourself some slack. Like, cut you and your partner some slack. Realize that you're both not perfect people, that there's this distance between you, and that, sometimes it's hard to communicate how we feel. And it's hard for our partners to understand how we might feel. And there's just like, sometimes you're not really like meeting each other on the same level. Like someone is here and they think that this thing is happening and the other person is here and they're like, no, this is actually happening. And it's like a lot of confusion and then you get upset and stuff like that. Just like cut yourself some slack. It's difficult. Like you are allowed to hate the situation. You are allowed to get upset about it. You're allowed to have those bad days. Find something that makes you just feel a little bit better, whether that's accepting the situation, finding like a specific thing that you can do with your partner virtually, like a little hobby or something like that. Maybe you like start a book club and you both like read the same book and it's something to talk about. Like, whatever it is, find those small things that'll help you sort of get through it.
Yeah, I think one of the tougher things for me with long distance was I don't know necessarily how to explain this, but I am really quite bad at explaining or just like talking about myself or my day in general. So I constantly kind of felt like that she had no idea what was going on with me, and I think she felt that way too. So it always kind of made me feel like obviously we were in a long distance relationship, so we weren't together, but it made me really feel kind of isolated and separated from her, which was obviously not ideal. Other than that, it's just hard. It really is. Like I don't I like having my own routine and I like doing my own things, but that distance with someone who is such a big part of your life, it's really hard to adjust to, and it's not something that for me ever really got completely normal. It got better as it went on, but it was never anything like where I was like, okay, we're just long distance. Like I'm gonna just do my thing. Like it's not easy to adjust to. And every couple have their own experience with long distance. Like I have a friend who dated this girl for like 5 years, and they were long distance for like four of them, and it just seemed like to work for them. Like they had no issues with it. Like, and that's great for them. It's really just depends on the couple.
I think another big positive thing about long distance is that it makes your relationship so much more resilient. And it also helps you sort of understand your relationship and your partner so much better because I feel like there's a lot of patience that needs to be involved in order to make a long distance relationship work. And when you have that patience, you sort of put yourself aside for a little bit and you learn more about what your partner is like. Like I think there's certain things that I didn't really know before that, which I know now. And it's because of that long distance situation. When I had initially thought about this like topic, like talking about long distance on our podcast, I wanted to do it in the format of long distance, yay or nay, whether you should do it or not. And kind of going off of that, I want to say that I think if you're considering long distance, if you've had any thought about it and your partner is sort of on board and you're like about to enter a long, or you're about to be separated by distance, try it. I feel like it doesn't really hurt to try, especially if you think that there's something going with that, or you have something going with that person, or you see a future with them, whatever that is. Try it. If you get into that long distance relationship and you feel kind of the same way I did, or worse, or whatever the situation is, and you just feel like you cannot do it, it's not your thing, maybe the relationship really doesn't feel like it was before, whatever the situation is, you can always say, okay, I tried long distance. I didn't like it. It didn't work for us. I don't want to do it anymore. And you can, I mean, as sad as it is, you can end the relationship. But like, I think the other thing is, I fully believe that if a relationship is meant to be and you guys do break up and like you're meant to be together at some point in your life, like you'll find each other again when it's a lot more convenient, when you're a lot more mature, when you can better handle maybe a long distance situation or you're in the same place. So don't like beat yourself up for trying to get through that long distance relationship because you committed to it in the first place. It's okay to say, this wasn't for me, I don't want to do it anymore, and to just end it. I think that there's a lot of opportunity in, like ending the relationship to better take care of yourself and to maybe not like stretch yourself in in a direction that you just cannot manage or handle or whatever it is. With that being said, if you are planning on entering a long distance relationship in the near or later future, Hank and I tried to prep ourselves for what long distance was going to entail within like the weeks leading up to us getting into a long distance relationship. And we did a couple of different things. So, one, I bought a large pack of cards off of Amazon. I think I got like a 48 pack. And Hank and I worked on writing each other like letters, cards. We both did 14 each. And at the end, or I guess at the end of like this period of time of us being together, going into the long distance period, we gave each other the cards. And the whole idea was like, if you ever feel sad or if like the other person is doing something and can't like answer the phone or, is sleeping or whatever it is, or, you just like want to like hear from that person, whatever the situation is, if you feel like you need to like hear from the person and you can't hear from them in the moment, open up a card and read it. And the whole idea was that the card was supposed to make you feel better. And I personally wrote cards about all sorts of things. There were some cards about like random topics. And then there were some cards about like, me telling Hank how much I loved him. So that was great. I haven't opened one of those cards in the longest time, but at the beginning, I would read them whenever I needed to. And I would also I would bring maybe one or two along whenever I would go visit him or we would see each other. And I was like flying there so that I could read it on the way back home if, I was feeling sad or I wanted to just like feel comforted. So that definitely was a really great practice. We also created a Notion website, but we never really used that after it got created. So, yeah, we created a Notion page on the last day that we were together. Hank got me a teddy bear when we were living in LA. So, this was like way before this. But we went to Build-A-Bear right by the Empire State Building. We went to Build-A-Bear and we got Hank a bear maid and dressed him up and all that. long story short, we got Hank a bear to match my bear so that we both had, I don't know, like a comfort bear, whatever you want to call it. Another thing that happened in the weeks leading up to us going long distance was my For You page, my TikTok For You page decided that it needed to show me all the long distance content that existed on TikTok. And it I kind of hated it because in that moment I just really wanted sympathy for the situation. I didn't want some person on TikTok who's like been doing a long distance relationship for 5 years to tell me like this is what you need to like achieve for a good long distance relationship or like this is what you should do. And so I feel like you hear a lot of like this is right, this is wrong for relationships in general, but also long distance. And it's like we tried things. Like we tried making the like talk schedule, the FaceTime schedule, like I don't know, like the whole okay, we're gonna watch like a movie once a week, we're gonna do like a little like virtual date night, like whatever it was. And none of that really worked for us. We just could not stick to it. Our lives were so different from like a day-to-day basis that it was hard to like plan ahead, whatever it was. And so we just didn't manage to do the quote unquote right things that people on TikTok were saying you should do for a long distance relationship to work. But I I feel like we made it work. And at the end of the day, like you don't need to have like this perfect long distance situation. You don't need to listen to the people on TikTok who are telling you what you should or should not do. You can do all the wrongs. And as long as that's working for your relationship, then it's right for your relationship. So just find what works for you. And also, because you're probably not going to find a lot of other people who do it, I'm going to sympathize for you if you are in a long distance relationship because it does really suck and it is really hard and you deserve some sympathy. Anyways, yeah, I think that's going to be it from us on long distance relationships, at least for now. Thank you so much for listening,
Thank you for listening.
and we'll see you next week. Bye.